So you're probably looking at this and like, haven't you already made your stance pretty clear? I'm pretty certain. I'm pretty certain you've already, said what you needed to say on this type of topic in terms of what do you really care for. And you're absolutely right. I have, but also at the very same time, as we keep seeing more people devolve into stupidity and watering down the subjects of actual predators and nonsense like that, I kind of want to go back and reaffirm the stance again. Mainly also for people to understand where I'm coming from, but also for me too. Because there's like a lot of forms of lolly that's out there, and there's a lot of ways to interpret it and stuff like that. And so I want to give my clear and concise way of just kind of yapping about the subject of it and what do I like about it and things sort of like that, right? And where is my whole ass complete stance on it. So there is that, because also when it comes down to it, people do get attacked for this shit, which it's really ridiculous, and there's a lot of things about that I want to talk about. So yeah, so without any further ado, subscribe, help with the Kofi, and let's get into it. Now, I don't think there is any surprise in saying that I like lollies. Oh wow, did you know that? That's just about the same type of, surprising factor that you should really be aware of or know. Like, I'm black. Wow, surprise. Did anybody know? Who would have guessed? I think my first real deal early experience of lolly ever, and I didn't even know what lolly really was or the term of it was back then, was when I saw Pan off of Dragon Ball GT and really liked her. And then I guess Sami as well from Senshi for a long time ago, like when I was younger. So very much so, those were like the first couple of experiences I would say of like, oh dang, that's waifu material right there. If we have to go into that route, I would say that's probably the first experience when it was on Toonami and such from way back then. Then as the years progress, as time goes on, I don't really care for the subject of that too much. Right? Because at that point, I'm starting to really enjoy characters like Sakura Haru now, and then dipped off of that because she just keep being a damn dick rider for Sasuke, so I just didn't care. Then with Samadaka, and then after that, just kind of dipped off from that, and then just finally landed on Koneko because why the hell not? With obviously likings of certain other waifus in between, and certain lollies too, like Gwen from Ben 10, the first version of her, and then Jade Chan from Jackie Chan Adventures, because that show was goated as hell, and I have the VHS of the whole damn show, or at least the one where he beat the shit out of that damn dragon statue, which was still the greatest thing of life. I'm not gonna sit here and lie, but still, there have been instances here, and here, right? And then later on, like maybe I think at the late stages of my middle school time, that's when I saw Toph, and that's when we got that going and other things. So, there's like a mix between of different characters that's like, oh yeah, I like this, and this, but also there's that, and that, so that's just kind of how it is. It really wasn't until high school where I started getting to expose a lot more anime and a lot more terms that go along with it. And so if we're gonna be like really honest in terms of like, I know what a lolly is and I like this X character, that's when Koneko comes in, right? So technically, knowing what it is, Koneko will be like the first real lolly character in the technical term of what I know what it is now to actually just be in my liking and continuously be in my liking for I don't know how many years at this standpoint. So it just is what it is. And as we kind of go through the years of content creation, and as I keep bringing up the subject of lolly, just regardless of what it is, to keep it very much a stack, I was kind of also in that camp of, outside of just doing this because I was bored, outside of the camp of that, I was pretty much just like, well, if I'm gonna like a character, I'm gonna say I like a character. Because at the end of the day, I would rather just go ahead and just say, yeah, I would, very much like to see Pan get clapped up in some shape and form, versus just hiding behind a bush or something like that, just being like one of those other people, which honestly I get it because of how people are, but like hiding behind like a damn bush or something like that, just be like, I like lollies, can they see me, and just be like that. Because I would rather, I've always been the type of person that's been, very vocal and very much someone that is like going to tell you how things is and just blunt straight up from my perspective of things, versus hiding behind try to, safely say my words and stuff like that. There are certain things I can't necessarily just, outright and say, and there are certain things that obviously that people would like to say that they can't just outright and do because of just how people would react and all that type of stuff. So I can't necessarily say certain things without getting shot or whatever these days. That's just how it is. At least when it comes to like politics and stuff like that. But still, nonetheless, you get the point. So for me, I'm like, I would rather go ahead and say, yeah, I don't really mess around when it comes down to my words. Plus, I don't really mind lollies and all that sort of stuff, than just not necessarily have that there, right? And plus, again, I find it hypocritical that people can very much be on the same vein as liking Gargura and liking, other people that like lollies and such, and then have no problems with those people, but then immediately when someone else of a lower scale say they like it, everybody else starts to bombard them for whatever reason, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. Plus, it's even worse when you obviously consider the fact that majority of anime takes place in high school. So even if there aren't lolly, there's still very much underage characters, and people care about them being shipped together with certain characters, and people care about relationships with certain characters, and people care about somebody being gay in those relationships, or doing, art of that sort of kind of just any other character. And it's like, you can't really sit here and just get mad at one group of people for liking what they want to like when you basically have the same damn issue. Like, that is ultimately how it is, and I don't really understand how that's the case. There is a reason why the law has to basically say, yo, if it's, indistinguishable or not, if it's super ultra realistic looking at first glance or not, right? That's why you have those in place, because at the end of the day, yeah, it'll be kind of ridiculous to put someone in jail or throw them in a place of just imprisonment because they look at something fictional or something like that. It just really doesn't make a lot of sense. And it's just also the way that people go about this subject too, that just don't like it. If you don't like it, that's perfectly fine. No one's here gonna beat your ass for it, right? But at the very same time, you shouldn't also go out your way to be like, oh boy, can't wait for this certain person to get thrown into like a cancellation or something like that, because I want to see them get, basically hoed by everybody and get my own in, get my victory in, like what Chibi has been going through with, like, I think Tevin or something like that. It's just like, what? Like, I'm like, and he makes a point. It was just like, so you want to see people get hurt just so you can get your internet on? That's a bit weird, not gonna necessarily cap and lie. It's just like, yeah, I don't really get that. We should be trying to prevent this shit from happening in real life, not promoting it and wanting it just because someone is in your terms spiteful and shitty or something like that, right? There's plenty of content creators that I don't really care for, and there's ones I don't really like, if I'm being honest. That being said, I'm not gonna sit here and just be like, oh yeah, I totally want to see something bad happen for that person, unless there's some like, unless there's somebody like, Johnny or something like that, like Johnny Somali, and because that guy he is severely lost the plot. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, he doesn't make it to trial. I wouldn't be surprised if he decided to off himself just out of spite and out of pettiness, like the third Hokage. I would not be surprised if he decided to do that. But ultimately, that very much is how people kind of are, right? I might say somebody has a skeleton in their closet or two. They could have one, but at the end of the day, I'm not gonna wish that they have one, because yeah, that will just mean, yeah, pretty much want to see somebody get hurt, and then yeah, just to get my own in, which that is very shitty to say, not gonna lie, when you really think about it. And when you go into those parts of the conversation too, it's also like, we focus so hard on this, but never enough on the people that's legitimately trying to go, F around and find that real content and then just get what they want. Like, so many people forget that that is a thing in this factor of conversation when it comes down to what should we actually be aiming for, in terms of that at least, because there has also been times where I've seen people who use lolly art or use that sort of art in that sort of way, or at least when it comes down to fictional stuff, and then try to, promote themselves to be like, yeah, I want to go see that other real content, and just try to find that stuff. And it sucks because no one pays attention to that shit, and it's obviously, you obviously know what they're asking for, so it's just like, shut those down first, right? Like, can we get those people and not really worry so much about the lawless shit? I don't really understand that part. That's weird to me. So it's always been just weird how people perceive this whole conversation in a very much different amount of stances on it too, when it's really not that hard. Just, kind of let people to be to their own devices and just let that be the case. You don't like it, that's perfectly fine. There's plenty of things I don't like in this dang planet, but at the same time, kind of can't do anything about it. So it is what it is when it comes down to it. And then that's how you get people that are just like, you know what? I'm just gonna do something out of spite. That is how you get those people to kind of come through and then make the conversation a little bit more crazier than it needed to be. But it's because people just won't shut the hell up for half the time, and that's just how it is. And I won't lie, I am very much one of those people that will do shit out of spite. Just not gonna sit here and lie. Like, if we ever blow up on this channel, and if we ever had the money that we could just throw around, be disposable with, whatever, I will dead ass maybe do something safer work with like a whole bunch of lolly characters around, and then very much have Jay go into another animation, just have him clap the cheeks of many different lolly characters. You don't think I wouldn't do that if I had the money? Best believe I would do so. But that's just how it is for me, because out of spite, it's just like, oh my gosh, people still yapping about this shit? Alright, let's just have Jay clap a whole bunch of characters. That will teach him, just out of spite and just for me because I'm being petty. Because why the hell not? Just to troll and just to have fun. That's just kind of the vibe I would have, honestly, when it comes down to it. Possibly could make the conversation worse, but I don't care. That's just how it is for me, So there is definitely that. And in terms of lolly, and specifically what kinds I really would say I'm for, because I feel like there is a lot of people that's like, oh, a lolicon, if you like lolly stuff, you just like that and that's it. Which I've already said that in a previous video, that's what people legit think. And I'm like, no, that's not what people think. That is not how that is. Just because you're a lolicon does not mean that is the only thing you like. Hell, recently I've been looking up cosplayer content, not gonna necessarily lie. I think there was a few, and I've said my pieces of bits of it before, who I like, honestly, like Adori Rose and people like Tiny Asa now, and I think I found a new one. I think her name is Sweetie Line, who has like a nice cosplay that looks mad good, and the booba look just right and would clap. Just being honest. But yeah, there's some really good shit that's out there that isn't just lolly content. And even if we turn our attention to Gensai as a whole, there is plenty of characters that is not a lolly that's worth the clapping, honestly. Like Shan Yun from Genshin, which I got her back to back with Erasa last night, and Ian San, so my pulls in Hoyo has been blessed recently. But when it comes down to it though, you also have people of the same vein as like I don't know, let's just throw up a random name, like Midnight from My Hero or something like that. There's plenty of characters that, me personally, I thoroughly enjoy. Hell, if we gotta go to ZZZ for a second, if I'm gonna be honest, I like the more adult characters than I like any other person. Like, it's crazy to say that, but I do. I prefer someone like, Zhu Yan, or someone like Jane, or even someone of the height of Caesar or something like that. In those games, at least when it comes down to ZZZ, than anybody else. Would I reject not having the others? Absolutely not. Let me get those ass cheeks from Ambi and Piper, for sure. But at the very same time, I just prefer more of that in that game in particular than anything else. I'll at least put them in a higher position than I would probably any other character, if I'm being honest. Maybe outside of Kaleda, because Kaleda is kind of bad though, I'm not gonna lie. But that's really as far as that go. But anyway, the whole point though, in terms of what I'm looking for when it comes to lolly content in general, is usually characters that are like Konako's type of vibe, right? Characters that are just mature, but also not necessarily super tiny and super small, because it's like, okay, there's a few exceptions I would have to that, maybe like Pan or Anya or Eri or maybe Kana. Like, there's a few exceptions to that rule where I'm like, yeah, would for sure clap, and literally anybody from Sonic, because why the hell not? But when it comes down to it though, it's like, that's like exceptions to that rule. But mainly I'm looking for people like Konako or Yuki Nagato or Tatsumaki or whatever, characters of that stature, because at least they're like mature enough to know what's going on, and then at the very same time, they're still overall cute. That's kind of like that's like the whole ass thing for me, right? And then just to kind of add this into it, if they're kudere, that's even more of a bonus. And if they have like powers or they're strong as shit, that's a double bonus. So that's how it is for me, and that's what I mostly look for, right? In terms of which lolly do I like, in terms of like overallness of everything, right? But as far as art goes, whatever looks good, I'll probably go ahead and just keep it for research material. That is just how it is for me, right? Because at the end of the day, a lot of people be like, oh, I don't mind regular Gensai, but lolly, that gotta go. To me, I like when people draw stuff and they really make the artwork look as, you know, as good as possible. And if it looks good and I think the character is pretty good and I think it's hot, I'll go ahead and take it. I'll go ahead and just keep it for research material and just have it for that, because the character does look good. There are certain pictures of, obviously, like, I don't know, let's say Lamine, for example, that look really damn good. There's certain pictures of her that I don't really like that much, and I'll just not feel the same way about, you know? And that's kind of how I view everything when it comes down to Gensai material. Essentially, when it comes down to something like Kaneko, tons of pictures of Kaneko, a lot of it don't really look that great. Some of them don't really capture Kaneko that much. And then there's other pictures where it's just like, oh, she looks mad good here. Let me go ahead and yoink that real quick, because that's how it is. You know, same thing with Eri. Eri looks mad good in certain pictures. Got a nice big booty. That's what I'm looking for. But then there's some parts of it where she looks really rough and not necessarily what I'm looking for. And I'm like, well, gonna give a pass on that. Basically, again, whatever picture looks good to me is what I'll basically keep around and just kind of, you know, hold on to, you know? And that's just kind of how I interpret basically everything. I think that's how most people will interpret everything when it comes down to their beat meat material. The only for sure line I would definitely say I wouldn't want to go ahead and jump into or cross that hard into is definitely when you start getting to, like, you know, computer generated stuff, right? Because let's first start off with AI, because if it's AI, it has to be, if it's not really looking like, you know, I would say very anime-ish, if it's not in an anime art style, and if it's not a character that I obviously know, then I 9 times out of 10 will probably just avoid it. Especially when it gets to more like the really high definition skin detail and stuff like that. It's like, what is this? I didn't ask for this, and it just appears to be here, and it's just like, okay, didn't ask for this, but I mean, whatever. I'm not gonna really care for it that much. And then when it comes down to like 3D models of characters, if it's not really in an art style, I'm not gonna care for it. Like, that's like if you put Klee in front of my face and I'm like, oh yeah, I want some of that Klee cheeks, that's gonna be how it is. But then we put someone like Ellie from The Last of Us in front of my face, and it's just like, don't want that as much. Don't care for that at all, if I'm being honest, right? I know it has its audience of people. I know people like the realistic looking 3D computer models of certain characters, and if that's you, that's just you. But for me personally, I'm not really for it. Just gonna be honest. If it doesn't have an art style to it, I'm not really gonna sit here and care, right? That's just ultimately how it is. Someone like Olivia Mann from TF2, sure, that's perfectly fine. Maybe someone like Clementine from The Walking Dead, whatever, that's maybe also fine. Not my first choice, but that's also kind of fine. Tiny Tina from Borderlands, maybe, sure, that's also kind of fine as well, you know? Chi-Chi from Genshin, for sure, clappability every day, that's just how it is. But someone like, again, you know, of that stature of someone from The Last of Us looking like that, not really the first choice I would ever go for, if at all. So there's definitely, you know, some things I just won't particularly care for, right? And again, unless it's in an art style where it's done very well, and let's say somebody decided to be like, you know what, maybe not a realistic version of Ellie, but let's say we took her and put her into like a different art style, she looked kind of toonish or whatever, would that be fine? Then yes, sure, because it's whatever at that point, you know, because it's not really capturing the full detail of realism. So that's just like a different story for me. But if it's fictional and if it's basically having an art style that looks really good, then yeah, most likely than not, I'm probably gonna go ahead and tap in. The only times I will tap into a realistic art style is when you have like a character like, I don't know, let's say like the character models from Injustice 2, like Harley Quinn's model from that, she looked mad good in that game. Who wouldn't want to just go ahead and just do all kind of crazy things to that? I'm pretty certain a lot of you would. And if not, you're crazy. You're absolutely wildin', right? So for like people from that game, that's perfectly fine. It's whatever, right? But in terms of a lolly sort of instance, that's kind of not where I genuinely gel with or vibe with to a high extent. If I'm being honest, it just really isn't, right? And I know there's some characters in some games that will have like the skin details and try to look kind of realistic and stuff like that. Like for example, Sterlitzia from KH4, or Kairi at all in any of the CGs of Kingdom Hearts at all. That's clappability. That is, I will put that on the clappable list because it obviously, yes, it tries to go for something like that, but at the same time, it still looked very stylized, so I'm not gonna sit here and feel that damn bad. So ultimately, it's just like, yep, gonna clap KH1 Kairi, gonna go ahead and clap Sterlitzia would, so that's just ultimately how it is. But if it goes into a route where it's like ultra high definition 8K realism in all its photoshopness and glory, then it's just like, yeah, I'm out. For certain, I'm out. But ultimately, when it comes down to everything of what I said in this damn topic, lollies, no problem. Don't have a issue with it for the most damn part. It's really damn good. If you like it, you like it. You don't like it, you don't like it. You like it because of the art styles or whatever, perfectly fine. If you like it in whatever shape and form you do, whatever. As long as they ain't hurting no damn body, as long as nobody is basically, taking reference material from anything real, then it's whatever. In terms of like, that stuff that no one should really be having. In terms of that, then that's, it's kind of like whatever when it comes down to it if you're not taking it from that. But if you are, then obviously there's a damn issue here, right? We don't need another Shadman rolling around doing some weird shit. Let's just be absolutely honest. Because obviously people that draw are gonna take inspiration from real life. There's plenty of ass shaking in Gentai that I've seen that takes inspiration from different people and different stuff, and it's just like, well, that's perfectly fine because it's from a place that we can all see and obviously understand. But when it comes down to just taking it from real material, like I've heard certain artists have done, and I think they've been kicked off the internet, thankfully, but still, those type of people, that's unacceptable. That's just not how it goes and all that type of stuff. Just to again reiterate the damn point. But again, obviously I'm fine with lolly. It is what it is for me. If I want to see Eri just shake ass in front of my damn face, that sounds like a grand old time to me. But anyway, that is essentially all I really want to say for this one. Just to kind of again reaffirm the stances and not necessarily hide around or beat around the bush or anything like that, because again, I know a lot of people will very much get to that point and they will get hit with antis and stuff like that to get after they ask for whatever X reason, and it's for sure annoying. It is, but at the very same time, it is nice to have for at least for me to kind of just be like, I like this shit. I really don't care what anybody says, and that's just kind of ultimately how it is. And hopefully one day more people will feel that way, to kind of just be like, yeah, we like this shit too. It's not necessarily anything crazy, right? At least in terms for the people that does consume the content, because antis, they'll sell their own mother before they actually admit they like any damn thing. That's just ultimately how it is. But still, regardless, hopefully you did enjoy. If you did, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification on way out. Also follow me on social, and if you'd like to donate to the channel, go find Cash App is available as well. And until then, it's me, Boy J, sign off. Have a blessed day.